Let's talk about ancient China and look at some garments. In the ancient world, China was known as Ceres, which is just the Greek word for silk. It was known that because it had its legendary and luxurious silks that were traded to the west along the Silk Road. The rich stashes of garments and accessories found in ancient tombs really show how sophisticated the textiles and clothing was. It included things that were highly patterned, but light reflective fabrics and things that were just translucent gauze weaves. The Chinese really used, elaboration in their cloth, right? They used turbans and they had wide sleeves that later influenced, fashion in the West. And the T-shaped style kimono garments that had wide sleeves and different proportions than Western style tunics. And as you know, these are still garments that we wear to this day. Unlike the Egyptians, and later when we talk about the Greeks, folks in Eastern societies and oftentimes in Persia, which is modern day Iran and Iraq, although clothing was loose, it still was more tightly fitted in certain places. So it was very tight at the wrist. The skirts were much more shaped, and that was in part because they were horse riding people. So let's talk a little bit about the Silk Road, right? And the Silk Road was not one, but several trading routes throughout the mountains and the desert of Asia, the Arabian Peninsula, that eventually led to the Mediterranean. And silk was a prime commodity along with precious stones and spices. By the end of the 1st century BCE, before the Common Era, silk was available to the wealthy. It was imported again through northern India or Persia along the Silk Road, but it was so expensive that it was valued at its own weight in gold. The cultivation of silkworms really was a state secret. It's like the nuclear secrets that we want to have now. And it took a long time for them to finally capture it. And the Persians were the first to succeed in cultivating silkworms, but they didn't do it to the 3rd century of the current era. So ancient China was ruled by dynasties. Sometimes they were united under one dynasty, but for the most part, they were competing, controlling for different regions of the country. Ancient Chinese clothing, or Hanfu, refers to the historical clothing styles of China. And the Han Chinese, which the Han was a dynasty in about 300 BCE, historically they wore a robe or shirt for an upper garment, and a lower garment was commonly a pleated skirt. So next we're going to read an article and watch a video on traditional Hanfu clothing and the resurgence of Chinese wanting to go back to what their ancestors wore. So check that out in the next section of the lecture.